Well, welcome back. I am so excited about a new program that I heard recently about. It's called National School Chaplaincy Program. And when I heard about it, I got very excited. I started reading about it and seeing that they are making a difference in the schools with suicides and teen pregnancies, etc. And today we have the founder and CEO of National Chaplaincy Program, Mr. Rocky Malloy. So let's bring him on. Rocky, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's just get right into this. Tell me, when and how did you get the idea to start this program?
Well, I met my wife during the Nicaraguan Civil War, the
Mm.
Sandinista conflict. She was a Dutch nurse, and I was a merchant marine commander. And I was, while we were there, I saw a lot of bad things happen to little children. And so, even though I was working with the soldiers, I actually paid attention to little kids, and I realized they had no idea they were in war. And the communists used incendiary artillery on civilian targets, so they just burned people just without mercy.
Oh,
And so there was a few incidents with little kids there. It just turned my heart to children. I've been, you know, working to help prevent the victimization of children ever since.
wow. So when did you start the National Chaplaincy Program Association here in America?
Well, it actually only rolled out last year, but we've been doing chaplains in public schools for almost 30 years overseas.
Oh, overseas. And what did you see as a result?
Well, some of the first of all, there was huge resistance, but once we got through the resistance and people realized what the impact was, like in Bolivia was the first country they had in some school districts up to 85% reduction of teen pregnancies.
My.
And that when that happened, it shocked the system because these girls would get pregnant and drop out of school. All of a sudden, school systems were retaining girls, and the system was more or less built around them not finishing school. So all of a sudden, there's this large population of school of female students moving up through into high school, and it was like breaking the system in a good way. And so it really caught the attention of the national government, and they ordained it. They recognized it in a way that had never been any program ever recognized. And the Catholic Church got on board, and then after that, it went. Every every Spanish speaking country in the world has this program.
Oh my gosh. What were you doing to reduce teen pregnancies by that much?
You know, I'm kind of a simple guy. I saw that clubs would give girls free drinks to get the guys in there. And so we kind of built it on our program to empower women that they had to control, not the boys. Boys are very immature. I mean, probably always, but from high school down, girls are way ahead of the boys. Consequences they make in life stick with them forever. With boys, it's kind of come and go. So we had a program that empowered girls to be the social leaders. And when it became cool to go to school, get good grades, and it changed the dynamic of school. And then just simple questions to girls. What do you want to do when you grow up? Something probably your parents asked you, but the parents were not asking these young ladies those questions. And no matter what they wanted to do, an astronaut or a ballerina, they had to finish high school. And as soon as it kind of dropped into them that yeah, it was important to graduate, they knew they were going to have to stop having sex twice a day or whatever because all their friends got pregnant and dropped out of school. And when they owned that
Oh
decision
my gosh.
and they stopped doing it on their own, it was huge. Because if I said, hey, you need to stop doing that, they would have just quit talking to me and done it more. But
So
when
this
they
wasn't a morality issue at all.
This was self-preservation.
Wow.
I
So
mean,
simple.
it is simple, but it yeah, it's simple, man. Simple stuff like, look, I'm not a rocket science. I grew up, I had a lot of I made a lot of bad decisions growing up. That was another big emphasis for this. So just, common sense stuff.
Well, do you bring it's called chaplaincy, which makes me think faith. Is there a
Oh no,
faith element to all this?
they're praying with the children. I mean, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I don't know. Well, let's talk to God and see what He says. And we our kind of go-to for girls was to be a nurse because most young you have to think that in third world countries they're in survival mode. They're thinking about today or tomorrow. They're not thinking
Right.
about next week or next year. So to give them vision gave them direction. And so once the girls got direction, the boys just lined up right with it. And it just almost eliminated gang, drug use, violence. It was phenomenal what happened. It was so
Wow.
phenomenal that it reduced entitlement spending. So just think, you got communist governments that are fighting me, they're suing me, they're shooting at me, they're invading my churches. I mean, they're going after me pretty hard. US
You
government,
personally, Rocky. You personally,
yeah,
Rocky.
yes. And then this program is working in schools because the parents like it, even though the government's trying to claw it out. And then the government gets a revelation that when chaplains go into schools, it reduces their entitlement spending and stuff they said they would do that could never afford, but that's how they got into power. I guess we know where that came from. And so all of a sudden, when children start behaving themselves, the cost of government goes down.
Wow.
So miraculously, the same governments that were suing me and every got all the other stuff trying to do me harm, now they're lining up.
So, Rocky, was this a thing God spoke to you to do, or did you just come up with the idea, or what happened?
Well, what happened was is that you were talking back in the day. You know, we were doing this while we lived overseas. We didn't have any
So, is
connections.
this like? Are we talking 1990?
We're talking early '90s.
Yeah.
And so, no, 1999 was early 1995. We moved to Bolivia, right?
Okay.
And I'm working with a pretty large group of street children, and there's horrific things happening to these street kids. I mean, people are stealing their organs. They're just killed. I mean, this
Ah.
it's horrific what's happening to these little kids on the street, and that's why we
Ah.
moved to Bolivia because it was reported to have the highest street child issue of Latin America. So that's why we
So, were
went
you a
there,
missionary? Were you a missionary?
missionary. So what we found or what we discovered was is that if a child was in school, they were way less likely to fall victim to these horrible things that were happening to them. And so, Sandra, the only thing that ever worked for me was Jesus. So we thought, okay, if we can get Jesus in school, not religious Jesus, not church Jesus, but the Jesus of the Bible that children love to be with, if we could do that, kids would want to stay in school to be around Jesus. And it worked to today 20 million people in the program. And it's growing as fast as we can, structurally let it happen. And children love Jesus, man. And they want to be in school if Jesus is there. Graduation rates went up, violence went down. Sandra, here's a big number. No school in our program for 2 years or more have ever reported a suicide. And we're talking about a base of almost 25,000 schools.
Is that worldwide or just U.S.?
No, that is in the 22 countries overseas.
Okay.
We right now we have chaplains in training, but we have none of our chaplains are in schools right now
In
in
America,
the States,
because
just because we just started.
oh, okay. Are schools open?
Superintendents I'm talking to love the idea, but we don't have any chaplains trained for them to hire. So there usually we get three questions. First question is this really legal? Well, really, was it ever illegal? Every public institution in the United States have chaplains. And they go, well, you have chaplains in the military because they're denied services. Well, police and firemen aren't denied services. They can call their pastor anytime they want, right down the street. They're not overseas. How can the U.S. Senate have a chaplain? They're some of the most privileged people in the country.
Wasn't there recent legislation? in America that says you must allow the Bible into the schools?
Well, as a matter of fact, 48 states in their statutes of education require the Bible to be used to properly deliver education. 48
Still,
states.
still in effect.
I have sent that to state legislatures and they just didn't believe me. I sent it to them and I go, look, I know you got 10,000 pages of statutes here, but these are extracted it out and they're still in effect. They just didn't believe it. And then when they saw it, like for instance, the governor of Oklahoma, I sent it to some senators, state senators there, and they just couldn't believe it survived all the woke, right? And the
Wow.
governor told of it, he goes, man, we need to make sure we're following our own statutes.
That's pretty
So,
scary, Rocky, that you have to tell legislatures what's in the law.
well, to their defense, there's so much of it, and we
Right.
really, what happens? I think we're living based on a mirage. These leftist people that do not love our country are telling us what the rules are, and that's not true.
And we're believing it.
We believe it.
Wow. So, do you have some schools that are going to be the first ones to implement this program when your chaplains are trained?
Well, there's schools in West Texas that are very interested. They've already committed, and there's schools in a lot of schools in Oklahoma. The strange thing about Oklahoma is it's a very conservative state, but some of the most liberal school districts in the country are there.
That is
So
wild.
I guess when people get really close together, and I guess they lose touch with nature, they kind of go left. I don't know what it is, but rural districts love the idea. They know children need, and teachers, they need spiritual care.
So, walk me through how a program works? Let's say that I'm the principal of XYZ school and I bring in a chaplain. What exactly are they going to be doing? What's that look like?
Well, it depends on what you want them to do. That's their first job,
Well,
right?
give me some parameters of what they
Okay.
can do.
One thing they would do would be to greet the teachers and the students coming to school by name. It's a fact that a child only needs like 5 to 7 seconds a day to look them in the face and call them by name, in many cases, just to square them away. Somebody knows I'm here. And that's very important. We've had several instances overseas where children start showing up late or whatever, and the chaplain's able to detect something that's going very wrong right there. For instance, there was a little girl that came to school all of a sudden. She used to come to school on time. She started coming to school about 40 minutes late. And after 3 or 4 days, the chaplain asked her, "What's up?" This little girl goes, "My mother died at work, and she was digging through trash trying to find breakfast on the way to school."
Oh my gosh.
And so she had an older brother, and he was in middle school. She was in elementary school. She was a
Oh,
little girl. So then the chaplain goes to work, finds out what happened because the mother died at work. They took care. The little girl just, "Mom don't come home," and she heard she died. There was single parent home. So the chaplain helped find a relative. The little children are still in school, but now they're living with a relative. Those kids would have ended up on the street if that chaplain hadn't have been there. And everybody else was doing their job. The teachers were doing their jobs. The counselors were doing their job. Nobody else's job was to greet those children and just find out where they're at.
oh my gosh. You know, wow. That's hard. That hurts. That just even hurts to hear that story. Do your chaplains work with the teachers?
Yes, their primary role is to spiritually care for the teachers. Teachers under
Really?
huge stress right now, yeah,
Now, why is that their primary role?
because the teachers are the link to the students. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of teachers that are very sincere Christian people that started teaching because they want to, help children. But the whole environment of education has gone so far left, they've kind of gone with it. And so when a chaplain's there, what we've noticed is it's kind of like eyes on, where it kind of arrests them that maybe they should be going back to Kill a Mockingbird instead of My Two Dads as far as reading material, and some of the pornography that's coming through, they just kind of let it go where they didn't have to. There's so much things where just a teacher paying attention just to go, yeah, I'm not doing that. There's
Is this woke stuff that's happening here in America happening all over the world?
all over the world. The
This my
American,
two dads kind of stuff is happening everywhere.
yes. These organizations in the United States are global.
Yeah,
America
that's true.
lead when the Germans said God was dead and America picked it up and said, okay, there's no more God. Other countries lockstep just went right behind it to figure out, well, y'all know what you're doing. I've talked to, like I was in the Dominican Republic and they go, look, all this God's dead stuff that's is killing our children. We're not doing that anymore. We want God in school. And we are a legitimate way to deliver. Chaplains are recognized as people that minister to anybody, every denomination, non-denomination, whatever. And it's very different than a pastor that shepherds a congregation. A chaplain is there for everyone.
Do they bring Jesus into the school, or do they have to stay just God and no Jesus?
Well, we are Jesus representatives, but we're not evangelists. When we're praying in the name of Jesus. If not, I think you're just wasting your time and air. So when you're praying for a teacher, you're praying in the name of Jesus. You're a God representative, the God of the Bible, and you can be very bold about your faith. But our job as chaplains is not to evangelize people. So that's very important. That because even though the United States is one of the only industrialized nations in the world without school chaplains, very common.
Really?
Like Australia, you can't even own a gun anymore in Australia. They're still in COVID lockdown, but
Oh
they
yeah.
have a national chaplains program.
Are
Very
your chaplains allowed to have? Do they put on like programs or seminars, or do they give them hour-long times, or are they just there to counsel, or what?
well. They work to establish a Bible study and a prayer time with the teachers, the ones that want it. They help support the after school Bible clubs and other activities that happen in school. They coordinate uh, clergy or ministers that come into school. Have like pizza lunches and other activities, things like that. So they help coordinate. Right now in schools, there's nobody to coordinate that. So that would be could be a chaplain's job. A chaplain job's available. Like they can have a counseling room, but they're more at large. They're in the hallways, they're at lunch, and then when all the students are in class, that's when they would be like in the teacher's lounge or in the library. They're just very accessible.
Do you think that the biggest change that's happening to students is because the chaplains are working with the teachers, and the teachers are changing their behavior, what they're doing, or are the chaplains getting that much one-on-one time with that many students?
Well, last year we logged over 2 million one-on-one meetings between between chaplains and students or teachers. But it's what you said. The chaplains bring a level of spiritual accountability to a school that arrests the teachers, and then they behave different into the children. Like let's say teachers had a lot of problems with alcoholism and infidelity. When the chaplain shows up, when I was a pastor, I saw people swallow lit cigarettes because they didn't want, for the pastor to see them smoking a cigarette. So it's kind of like that in schools. All of a sudden, they feel more shame that they're living that lifestyle where they're trying and they're examples to children. So it's had a compound effect, but I think it's some of everything. But the impact on teachers has been huge.
So in scripture, when we talk about being a light on a hill, and of course in the church, we talk about being atmosphere changers, it sounds like you're proving that.
The numbers speak. Can you imagine you got a database of almost 25,000 schools, 20 million people? And because we work with governments, we got pretty hard data. So, if you do a crusade, praise God for crusades, then the next day, where's everybody at? And, but there's nothing negative about that. But in our case, we got the data. We got all the schools, register schools, who's in the school. I mean, so we can pretty much put the data out there. And the consequences of chaplains are overwhelming. Children graduate from school, or if they do drop out, they stay in school longer, which in our world, that means they're less likely to become victims. They have better they have better critical thinking skills. Their attitudes about problem solving. One of the biggest things is hope. The science of hope is a spiritual thing.
Hope
But
deferred makes the heart sick.
what hope is when you have a goal and you work on pathways to achieve that goal, and you have the agency or you have the willpower to achieve it. So it's a goal important for you to stay with it. And just simple things like hope, talking to children about hope, which is the best predictor of future performance.
Mm. Do you have any instances of children that had a chaplain in school? They went on and graduated and have come back to the school to be a chaplain?
Yes, we have. I have a really beautiful story. There was one girl, she was going to be a senior that year. She only went to the first day of school to tell her other friends that she was not going to go to school. And there was a chaplain there, and he said, well, just come back one more day. Well, she ended up graduating, and she was elected to the student council president.
Mm.
This girl, the reason this girl was dropping out is because she lived with her uncle. Her parents were either gone or deceased. I don't know what happened to them, but her
Rocky,
uncle.
I'm sorry. Hang on right there. We have to take a break, but come back. I want you to finish that story. We'll be right back. Check out Heartstone Network, a place where you'll find feature documentaries, testimonials, and great teachings by many of your favorites. It's a place that we hope will encourage you in your walk with Christ. While there, check out this series we have with Mario Murillo called I Am Not Ashamed. It's a great look into his past and how Jesus has brought him to be the man that he is today. Check us out, heartstonenetwork.com. Welcome back. We are with Rocky Malloy. He is the CEO of National Chaplaincy School Program. Or is it National, did I say that right, Rocky?
It's
National
the
School Chaplaincy Association.
National School Chaplain Association.
Which is, man, I am so excited about this. But we had to interrupt you for a commercial break. You were talking about a student who was going to drop out of school, and they came back. The counselor said, come one more day. And then what happened?
Well, what happened was the chaplain found out that she lived with her uncle. Her parents were deceased. I don't really what happened to them. And her uncle was having regular sex with her and prostituting her out to his friends. So she just couldn't bear that. She just had to drop out. She didn't know what she was going to do. Chaplain convinced her
Poor
to stay in
baby.
school. She ended up becoming the school, the president of the student council, and she went on to become an attorney. Now then, she protects children's rights. So
Oh,
she was
that's
just one
awesome.
example of such a powerful. So now we have superintendents, principals, teachers that went through the program, life changing for them, and now they're very dedicated to
Oh,
bring
wow.
Jesus to their students in a really very overt way. Not like the chaplains. You know, chaplains have to be very, you might say, careful about how they share the good news of Jesus because in order to maintain their chaplain status. But the teachers that have come through that system that are in it right now, they're on fire for the Lord because they know what happened for them.
Wow. Now, just as a mom, I have to know, was your chaplain able to do something about this horrible uncle? Tell me he's in jail.
Well, there's been a lot of people that have gone to jail. We found out one superintendent was using the yearbook, a vice principal using the yearbook to traffic children. Our chaplain calls it. We have a call insert, and he says, "There's limousines picking up 7-year-old little girls here. I don't think that looks right." And so we contacted, because of what we do, we've got pretty direct line to authorities. We called the authorities and go, "You need to be at school tomorrow." So they started arresting people. They arrested this vice. Anyway, like 20 people end up going to prison over that deal. But you would be surprised how often we come across those things. And the chaplain is the person because somebody's paying. He's not in the system, but he's paid by the system to safeguard teachers and children, and they just come straight into these kind of issues, and it's happening in America too.
So let's talk about America. Let's talk about how this is going to roll out in America, and how people can get involved. Let's talk about that, because America, boy, America needs it big time.
The Right now in Texas and Oklahoma, Senate bills have been filed. The House bills are still in what they call legislative council. So Texas and Oklahoma are leading the states right now to fund chaplains. And the funding bill really just says that chaplains can be hired with counseling funds. There's not enough counselors to fill all of those positions. So I don't know if you really have money left over, but there's unused money in these budgets for licensed professional counselors and other types of counselors. For instance, in Texas, 66% of the teachers are not certified. So
What? Not
that's right,
certified for what?
to teach.
What?
Yeah, you asked me earlier about the lady that introduced me to you, Julie Pickering, who's a state board of education in Texas. That means that those people are in some type of emergency certification, some path, working to be certified. Now, they could have education in other areas, or sometimes they're just plumbers or electricians that want to change what they're doing.
I'm sorry, I have to catch my breath here a minute. My, I didn't know we were in such a crisis.
It's a
Wow.
crisis, but that's why chaplains are so important, because it's proven to keep teachers on the job. So the brain trust of experience are leaving schools because they're not into woke, they're not into pronouns, they're not into CRT. They're just into teaching children. They're not into all this ideology. So a chaplain comes to school. It will help safeguard these teachers, their First Amendment rights, and it'll encourage them to stay, which they stay. Teachers stay on the job when chaplains are there spiritually caring for them. But the other issue is that the new teachers that are coming on have a tendency to be woke because they're just right out of school. Universities now aren't helping us out. So that's one reason it's kind of shifting to the left, so chaplains can help stabilize that situation.
Okay, so let's say I'm hearing you and I'm thinking, man, this is calling my name. I like it. How much training do I need? Do I need a certain degree? Do I need a certain background? How many hours do I need to go through training to be qualified?
It depends. The first step is to send us it's a short form. It's on our website,
What's your
National,
website, Rocky?
National School Chaplain Association.org.
Okay.
And you go to be a chaplain. The first thing we ask you to do is to send us a brief assessment of your education and experience. If we need more information, we'll contact you. When we get that information, then you generally fall into one of four categories. One is you're ready to go right now. We certify you and put you on a national register. Most people are falling in a category where they need a 48-hour training. This training is offered by Oklahoma Christian University and by Focus on the Family. If you have zero experience,
In
like
what? In counseling? Zero experience in counseling or what?
the zero experience working with children, you're not ordained, you're not licensed as a
Okay.
chaplain, then you'll need 30 college credit hours, or which is traditionally one full school year.
Okay, now I have a college degree. I'm also ordained and I've like taught youth groups and things like that, but I've not been a professional counselor. Would I qualify or would I would feel like I would need some counseling. I mean some training.
You would be the 48-hour person.
Okay.
Because look, chaplains are not professional counselors. They can't make a professional referral or a medical referral. But what we have found is the vast majority of students that are on these wait lists to see a professional counselor, like an LPC, they don't need professional counseling. They just need to be heard. They need somebody that knows how to listen to them, to unload whatever is stressing them out and causing issues. And it's been very effective. And it reduces the stress on this public school systems, the counselors, because there's somebody out there talking to these children. And a lot of times the children just voluntarily withdraw their request to speak to the LPC, because there's some kids there the LPC needs to talk to. These are
Right.
children hurting themselves or other people. They need to go see that somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And beyond what the training and skills that a chaplain has. And the chaplain could, make a recommendation, unofficial, that, I talked to so and so over here. They should be at the top of your list.
Mm-hmm.
And 90% of people that hurt children or children hurt people in school, they tell other people. So these children that walk into schools with weapons and start killing their friends or whatever other people, they told somebody. And so who are you going to tell? We still have a daughter in high school. She's a senior, our last child. And she said, who would I tell? You got to go get in line to talk to a counselor. And if you tell them, like, it goes in your transcript, remember the Holy Grail transcript? And so they're all trying to protect their situations and their self. And a chaplain is the safe person.
Because obviously they're not going to add anything to the record.
Exactly. The
Mm-hmm.
chaplains are outside of that whole thing. So you can trust a chaplain, first of all, that whatever you tell him just stays between you and him, unless you say something that forces the chaplain. Like, you could tell the chaplain, I'm going to go kill myself. All right. That chaplain required by law in every state in the United States to contact the correct authorities.
What kind of accountability do your chaplains have, Rocky?
Well, they're accountable to the HR departments of the schools they work for.
Do
First,
they do any kind of reporting to your organization?
they're not required to.
Mm-hmm. So
We
do you
like
have like a yearly conference or anything like that where you get your people together?
Well, once a chaplain comes on board, we have like a wiki platform where they communicate like peer to peer with other chaplains. We have regular education or additional education or training if they want to participate to help them do better, be better equipped. We really haven't got that far yet to have conferences and stuff, but that's come up several times. Probably be a good idea.
So if I was a chaplain and I had a student come in and see me and it was a particularly difficult issue and I was kind of stuck, is there somebody I can call or go to discuss it, to try to get some ideas or help,
Well,
support?
we have a phone app with lots of issues listed by
Oh,
the problem, like suicide, depression, whatever. So it gives you a biblical way to counsel or minister and pray with that child. We also have a senior chaplain board that's available to take calls from chaplains. We expect that senior chaplain board at some point to be overwhelmed, and then in Latin America we use call centers. So we have trained, veterans answering these calls to help the chaplains better navigate some tough situations. And sometimes it requires law enforcement or child protective services. We hate calling those people, but you get this like little kids and their parents are prostituting them and stuff. That's a big deal. So somebody needs to get on board to get that child in a safe place.
are you expecting smooth sailing when this launches here in the States? Or what about this whole woke culture? Are they coming after you?
You know what? To be honest with you, we spent a lot of energy getting ready for all the legal pushback, and it just didn't show up. Now, that doesn't mean it won't show up, but when you look at it, there's no legal issue here. It's ideology. You mentioned earlier, there was a case this past summer with the Kennedy case where a public school teacher, his First Amendment rights were upheld to pray at school, during school, while he's on the payroll. That busted it wide open. And there's been other cases that have come down that support public institutions paying chaplains with public money. I mean, even airports have chaplains. So if a traveler has the right to, or maybe not the right, but he has the privilege to have spiritual care, our children don't? It's really unbelievable that everybody can have it, but our children.
Well, I mean, Rocky, you got to admit, our society is failing on the job of protecting our children.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. And I don't know what that says about us, but it's like out in California, Governor Newsom lightened the penalties if you were a sexual predator of children. It's now a slap on the wrist. I don't know. I'm getting very concerned about living in a country that can't protect its own children. Because if you can't protect your own children, I don't know what we're about.
well, big thing in the news right now is children transitioning to another sex, supposedly. Did you know that 1 out of 2 of those children kill themselves? So if
Yes.
you're involved in any level of mutilating a young person, I'm thinking you should be charged with assisted homicide or some kind of, I mean, half of those children kill themselves?
Yeah. Well, the woke ideology is trying to make us think that this is a huge kid, that there's plethora of kids wanting to do this, and I don't believe that there is. Are you seeing all these big, huge numbers, or is it small numbers?
Well, I can tell you this, just a few years ago, there was one sex change clinic in Texas, and now there are over 2 dozen of them with a huge waiting list.
Oh,
So the number of children going through this, and it's in rural schools, it's in country. I mean,
oh,
the system is pushed. Here you are, a little kid, and somehow or another, you're forced to read My Two Dads, and now you ask the question, am I a boy or a girl? Somebody needs to go. Whatever's on your birth certificate, that's what you are. And that's the only thing you can be to fulfill your call of God. Let's pray to eliminate any confusion. But that's not what they're getting. They're getting, well, maybe you are a girl if you're a boy. I mean, just think how
you
that
know,
goes through its
you
head.
can't. You're not considered mature enough to drink one beer, until you're what? In some states, 18, others 21. But at 14, you can make a decision that will affect the rest of your life. But you can't have a beer.
Now, what a lot of people don't realize, once you start taking those blockers, you just sterilized yourself.
Exactly.
You got a young lady, maybe she's wearing a different kind of bra or something so she looks more like a boy. She starts taking those blockers, that's it. The idea that I'm going to grow up, have babies of my own, it's over. Same thing for boys.
So what do I think we all know what's behind it, but what do you think is behind all that?
Well, I just think it's the devil, because you're destroying the very function of what we're doing. God said, be fruitful and multiply. When you look at, even though as evil as Disney has turned out to be and all that, it's the princess and the prince, and they marry, live happily after and have kids. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're robbing that from people. They're killing themselves. I mean, it's these precious little children, and they're so confused. They're depressed. I mean, that's why we need a chaplain in school, for a little kid to go up to a chaplain and go, what am I?
Yeah.
And for somebody to take authority and go, this is who you are.
They're out to destroy them, just like when a girl goes in to get an abortion. They don't tell them, now listen, like 85% of women are going to suffer with this for many, many years. They don't tell them that. They also don't tell them that the people that have sex changes are never really happy. And another thing they're telling them, anatomically or physically or however you want to say it, they will never have a normal sex life. I don't care what they think. I have a friend, one of my closest friends was a nurse, and she was forced to work in one of these sex change things for a brief time. She described it all to me. You will not have a normal life. You will not. And it will not make you happy. It will not. There's too many people that have done this that are now out trying to warn people not to do it. And they live with infections. It shortens their lifespan. It's just, oh my gosh. Such a perversion.
Yeah, no, man. Look, we got to help our children. The teachers stuff. We have to help the teachers right in the middle of this. They didn't sign up for this. Now, some of the teachers did, but the vast majority are just Americans that want to help children, right? So we're not. But the chaplain needs to go in there to help reinforce the same Judeo-Christian values that founded our country, just American family values.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I don't think chaplains are going to solve all the problems, Andrew, but I think it's a great step to go, whoa, okay, we're not backing up anymore.
Now, if I become a chaplain, am I going to be in the school? Is it 5 days a week? Do I have a schedule like the teachers? Or is it like 3 days a week or what?
You'll be a district employee. Your schedule will look very much like a teacher. Some schools might want to hire you part-time, but where our goal is in these states with legislation is a full-time position so that you're in the library, you're reviewing the books in the library. Somebody needs to go look at those books.
Ooh,
And
that's a great idea.
yeah, and there's another place where there's three places where evil books are. Public library available to children, school libraries, but teachers' libraries. You walk into a teacher's room, there's a lot of books in there. Who's looking at those books? Bingo, job for the chaplain.
Oh, well, that makes him kind of like an undercover agent. Now,
Well,
if a chaplain finds a dirty book, what can they do?
well, one thing they can do is talk to the teacher. Why do you have this on your shelf? Why do you have hardcore porn in a third grader's room?
Oh my gosh.
And we're talking hardcore. We're talking about if you showed that picture right now, you and I would both be embarrassed. And it would just be nobody, it would be just people turn you off. I mean, it would just be terrible. And it's in little kids. It's brain damage. It causes brain damage for that exposure pre-puberty. That's a fact.
You know what? 8-year-old kids don't even need to be thinking about sex. My gosh, I didn't even know what sex was till I was 11.
Yeah, no, that's not that's not what they're thinking about. Girls have cooties and boys are dirty and all that kind of stuff. That's how, that's kind of how it is. And now they're bringing, like in second grade in Texas right now, they're a gender identification. What are you? What?
Oh my God. They're warping their brains so that by the time they're 10, 12, 14, they're all jacked up.
They don't know. I mean, you're taking, anyway. So we can talk. The problem is huge. We've got to stop the woke. We got to stop the CRT, all the hate, all this stuff. Chaplain's not going to solve all the problems, but it puts situational awareness in that school.
How are you getting the word out across the 50 states that you're here and you're wanting them to come in?
Wonderful people just like you speaking to your audience said, yes, we can make a difference. I can be a chaplain. You would be a beautiful chaplain. And there's a lot of other people out there with your same kind of experience that could be in 2 months, be certified, ready to go.
I'll tell you what, if I didn't have a job God had given me, I'd be all about it. I got very excited when I heard about your program. Man, I think it's a game changer. And I hope that people listening will go to your website. Tell them again what the website is, Rocky.
National School Chaplain Association. If you go
.org.
If you go National School Chaplaincy, you'll get hooked over to Australia.
Okay.
So it's National School Chaplain Association.org.
Now, if I go there, am I going to learn more, or have you pretty much spelled it out?
It's really clear. We talk about, there's 3 groups of people we want. The people that want to be chaplains, the people that want to hire chaplains, and the people that want to advocate for chaplains. We got it really broken down, very clear, very clean way to get the information you need. And there's, frequently asked questions, or people are welcome to communicate with us, and we'll deliver everything we know.
Well, and I also want to say this: if you're watching and you're very interested in this, but you can't do it because you have a job or children or whatever, listen. Go tell your children's school's principal about it, or school board, or somebody. Start spreading the word and start telling school this is available. I've got to believe that principals and stuff like that feel such a heavy burden that they've got to be looking for help. I mean, help. So, Rocky, I salute you, man. This is awesome, and I'm so thankful for what you're doing, and I hope this spreads like wildfire in the United States and beyond. So, thanks so much for coming on, and I hope to see you again, Rocky.
Thank you so much.